Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Eric with SweetSpotDFS, and welcome to my DFS review video for the 2022 Mayakoba Championship. We'll recap the tournament, review the sweet spot process, and look at the $5 GPP versus the optimal lineup all in this video. If you want to see the exact points where I'll be covering those, I have timestamps in the description below. You can also find them on YouTube's progress bar. All you gotta do is hover over the progress bar to find them there. Gonna make this quick. There are no giveaways this week. We did not reach the goal of 275 subscribers, so the subscriber giveaway did not happen, and we had no new signups for prize picks. So unfortunately, no giveaways, but all those entries for the subscriber giveaway, those will be moved on to next week's giveaway. And again, we'll keep running them until, or I'll keep adding those entries until we finally hit the goal of 275 subscribers. So unfortunately, no giveaways. Let's go ahead. Let's get into this thing. We'll start here with the results. Viktor Hovland's your winner. He's a back-to-back champion now, which if you were watching the preview video, I had mentioned I had heard him earlier in the week talk about how this was one of his favorite golf courses. One of his favorite tournaments, and his first 2 years that he had played here, he didn't do well because of new experiences and basically just being new on tour. But he knew the course fit him perfectly, or it was a good fit, I should say. And I mean, the result shows within itself. Like, having a back-to-back champion, not many people do that on the PGA Tour. Obviously, again, he has a lot of success here, likes this track. So going forward, I think, you know, if Viktor Hovland keeps playing this tournament, I wouldn't call him an auto lock, but as long as all of his stats or just everything looks good going into each of the tournaments that he comes back to Mayakoba for, I think it almost has to be an auto play, unless his salary gets out of hand. Then obviously no. Looking at the rest of the top 10, we have Carlos Ortiz, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler, Matthew Wolff, Joaquin Niemann, Abraham Ancer, Sergio Garcia, and then two kind of oddballs with Danny Lee and Andrew Landry. Now, outside of Lee and Landry, most of those guys we talked about through the preview, through the strategy video, maybe not so much Sergio, but Joaquin Niemann was my third ranked golfer in my model. He was $7,800, a really, I mean, it was mispriced, obviously. And we'll look more of that when we get to the sweet spot score. But yeah, Niemann to me was a definite play. And then looking at Matthew Wolff's scoring, if he is making the cut and playing, well, let's just put it this way. If he's making the cut, he's scoring a lot of points. He's missing the cut, obviously not so much, but we'll look at that as well. I want to show you guys what I found out. So you obviously know, I mean, if you followed me quite a bit, you know my take on Matthew Wolff. Really, it's trying not to be like unfair, but having, you know, depression issues or anxiety issues while you're on the golf or on the golf course isn't a good thing when it comes to results. So I would rather fade Matthew Wolff because of those things. But then obviously looking at his stats, like during the strategy video, when I went through my sweet spot score, he was highly ranked. And it opened my eyes to, you know, if you want to win a GPP, sometimes you have to take those risks. So for me, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Wolff until I saw the stats. And let me put it a different way. Matthew Wolff I like as a person. As a golfer, I like him as well. Kind of a quirky golf swing, but to me, it was always the mental game that I was more worried about. Looking at his DraftKings scoring, like long-term and even short-term, it's like a slam dunk. Obviously, you want to play him probably more often than you don't. So I'll get more into that when we look at, you know, scoring, the scoring stats that I recorded this week. But I was not afraid to roster him. And we'll go through some of these other guys, but Abraham Ancer was kind of a lock. Scotty Scheffler was a lock. These guys are really good when it becomes like scoring fest or birdie fest. Like, those are golfers you want to play. Sergio, I mean, a lot of people picked him earlier this week just because they liked, you know, what he brought to the table at this type of golf course. And obviously he paid through, or he paid He paid his salary. Let's just put it this way. He performed well. But that's basically the recap. I can go into a little bit of the scoring. You can see the top 10 up here. A few golfers here with all rounds under 70. Like, that's a bonus on DraftKings. That's something to pay attention to. I started incorporating this into my SweetSpot model, into the scoring model. So going forward, I'll continue to do that. I just actually added for, next week's tournament, DraftKings top 10 percentage. So how often do players finish inside the top 10? So I'll include that in the model as well. I think that's going to help a lot. But yeah, it's a huge help to get all rounds under 70. So you can kind of see the scoring. I'm not going to go over everything. I don't intend to make this video that long. So take a look on the screen, pause the video, look at their scoring if you want to get a little more of a breakdown there. But this is going to transition me into looking at the optimal lineup versus the $5 GPP winning lineup. Let me go ahead and hide this. All the golfers here highlighted in blue, these are your $5 GPP golfers that were in the winning lineup for that tournament. You have Victor Hovland, Carlos Ortiz, Joaquin Niemann, Abraham Ancer, Andrew Landry, which surprise pick. Like, good on you for picking Andrew Landry. I don't see many lineups really having Andrew Landry in them. So he did really well there. Only one golfer who did not finish inside the top 10, and that was Danny Willett. So Danny Willett finished 27th, scored 88 points. That was good enough to take down the GPP. Now, the optimal lineup had Victor Hovland, Carlos Ortiz, Scotty Scheffler, Joaquin Niemann, Danny Lee, and Andrew Landry. So the $5 GPP winning lineup had 3 golfers that were in the optimal lineup. Forgot to mention how much they scored. Well, I guess I have to figure that out on my own. I forgot to record it. 680 points. That is how much the optimal lineup, the $5 GPP winning lineup scored. The optimal scored 706. So there's a 26 point difference there, which is really good. Like, for a GPP winning lineup, I would say being within, when it's an actual cut event, the close, let's say if you're within 40 to 50 points of the optimal lineup, you did really good building your lineups. Most of the time I see those GPP winning lineups somewhere between like 50 to 80 points away from the optimal. So there's a huge gap of improvement that we could do as DFS players in order to win a GPP. But this one was pretty good, within 26 points. 2 6K golfers, Andrew Landry and Danny Lee. We had a 10K, a 7K, 9K, and another 7. So 2 7s, a 10, a 9, and 2 6s. Pretty close to your traditional build when it comes to building lineups. And again, that's your 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. Just replace one of those 8s with a 6, and you have, your substitute for that lineup. But that's all I have for this. Let's go ahead, get into the SweetSpot score. So I'm going to sort by this rank. And again, I'm going to go over here and show you the new stats that I added. Rounds under 70 percentage. Again, whenever I do any of my scoring models or anything like that, I'm trying to get I'm trying to get the best golfer with that stat to 100 points. So you can see 78.57 for Justin Thomas, 82.78 for Victor Hovland, so on and so forth. If you get close to 100, that means you were the best golfer in this field. So obviously, it's a weighted, just put it this way, it's a weighted stat. And then I made cut percentage. That's not miscut percentage. It's made cut percentage. Maybe I should just put it CM. It's probably a better one, right? Cuts made. Cut made percentage. Yeah. MC's miscut. So anyways, cuts made percentage. Again, closer to 100 is the best. Victor Hovland and Joaquin Niemann had some of the best scores in this field for making the cut. So furthermore proof to want to play them. And here's kind of like my just scratch paper. I wanted to see just scoring stats So I think I just looked at these 4 stats right here, added those up. Let's double check. Yeah. So it's these 4 stats right here: DraftKings average for the year, scoring average for the year, rounds under 70%, and cut made percentage to create this value. So I'm actually going to look at that right away. So we'll sort here. And I do have finishing position right here. Makes it a little easier. You can see POS for position. We have the winner, number 1. So the best scoring golfer in the field wins the tournament. The second best scoring finishes 3rd. And then we had Mito Pereira, who missed the cut. And then we had Joaquin Niemann, who was 4th in the scoring model, finished 5th. Guido Migliozzi, I think the cut made percentage really inflated his score. He didn't have that many events. I think what I need to do is look at how many events a golfer plays and adjust this this score here. Actually, I don't know if I have events played. Yes, I do. So Guido had 16 rounds under his belt that made up of this score. Maybe, I mean, that's like 4 rounds, obviously. Maybe I need to adjust that. I should say 4 tournaments. I should adjust that to be maybe at least 5 or 6 tournaments. I don't know. We'll see. I'll think about it. I can see Taylor Pendrith was right there as well. Another guy, his cut made percentage wasn't extremely good, unlike Guido's. I don't know. Maybe I just keep those guys up there because their scoring potential, that's where I'd want them to be, because they can score a lot of points. But either way, just looking at scoring, that doesn't really give you the full picture of golfers you should be selecting. But hey, it got us on a 1st place guy and a 3rd place guy, so that was good. So the scoring thing, I'm going to tweak a little bit. I'm going to add DK top 10 percentage in there and see how that performs going forward. I'm not going to, look at this in a reactive way. But onto the actual SweetSpot score. So the rank is based off of the score that you saw all the way over there to the right. I want to see at least 4 guys inside the top 20 for the SweetSpot score in the optimal lineup. And I've got 1 in Victor Hovland. He's my 2nd ranked guy in the field. Joaquin Niemann was my 3rd ranked guy. He finished 5th in the optimal lineup, like I said. Then we had Scotty Scheffler, who was my 11th ranked guy. He finished 4th in the optimal lineup. And unfortunately, we didn't have the 4th guy inside the top 20. The best I could do is 35th with Carlos Ortiz. And I really do like Carlos Ortiz. He is a golfer that I think we should be playing. Now, Matthew Wolff, Justin Thomas, Abraham Answer, they all finished top 10. Is that where I'm trying to get at? Yeah. Matt Wolff, Abe Answer, Justin Thomas finished top 10. Didn't get in the optimal lineup. Of course, it's based off of DraftKings scoring. That with price tag, you can't fit them in if they, don't all equal under 50,000. One noted golfer I want to mention is Taylor Gooch. Taylor Gooch scored 103 points. That's only 6 points behind Matthew Wolff. He finished 11th place. I think if he cracks the top 10, he's probably a golfer that finds the optimal lineup. Just a few more points scored would have gotten him there. So maybe you replace one of his bogeys with a birdie, and I think for sure he's in the optimal lineup. I'm looking at the points, this column right here. Maybe not. It's close. Don't get me wrong, it's close. So overall, the SweetSpot model, really close to finding 4 golfers in the optimal lineup. So I'm kind of proud of that. It makes me feel good. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to. I use this SweetSpot rank to figure out my marquee tee time pairing. So if you're with me in the strategy videos, you know exactly how I come up with this. Basically looking at the 3 golfers in the group. So you can see this column over here under game, same tee time, same tee box. That's the first group. So collectively, if they're under, and I have to come up with a term for this, but Guru Nick and myself, we created a benchmark, if you will. There's 132 golfers in this field. 67%, 66% of that number, it ends up being 82. Like I think it's 82. So if the 3 golfers, their sweet spot rank collectively is under 82 or ties 82, I'm going to highlight their color dark green. You might see some of these light green colors. Those are kind of like honorable mentions. They're really close. Like that first group is 110. 2 golfers, by the way, ranked 7th and 11th in my model, and then Peter Malnati, who is 92nd in the model. If it isn't for Peter Malnati, those guys would be in one of my marquee tee time pairings. That's why I highlighted them, and you can see one of them finish in the optimal lineup. Both of those guys actually had top 20s, so that was really good. But here's an example of me shading that group with a dark green color. The Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, Billy Horschel. Collectively, their score is 54. So if I filter this out by color and just show you every 3, these are the marquee tee time pairings that I talked about in the strategy video. And the rule of thumb is you want to select 2 golfers from these groups, but not in the same group. So again, like how I explain this is you wouldn't want to pair Tony and Brooks up together. Throughout, I think it's now 58 weeks that I've done this, only one time have we had 2 golfers from the same group in the optimal lineup together. Only one time. So for me, it's you look at the percentages. Now, also one of the other things to note is there was 1 week out of all of those where none of the golfers in my marquee tee time pairings finished in the optimal lineup. And I think there were 2 instances where there were only 1 golfer in the optimal lineup. So you can toy around with those percentages however you'd like, but the rest of them either had 2 or 3 golfers in the optimal lineup. And I always tell you, just select 2. To me, that's kind of the easy way to do it. This comes with some updated scoring though. And that's kind of what I was a little curious about in the strategy video. Because my scoring involves new stats, I didn't know how that was going to affect the marquee tee time pairings. But if you take a look, the groups that I have performed amazing. Minus the Finau, Brooks, Horschel group and the Hatton, Lowry, Laird group, everyone had a top 5 finisher in their group. So the first one, the Justin Thomas, Joaquin Niemann, Ricky Fowler group, we had 2 top 5 golfers. And Fowler came out really hot on Thursday, kind of simmered down on Friday, but still had a respectable showing, finished 40th. But you also have your optimal lineup guy here, Joaquin Niemann. So for me, I didn't create any Justin Thomas, Joaquin Niemann lineups. I could have easily done it, and it would have, probably helped me make a little bit of money. But if you really wanted to strive for the optimal lineup, doing a Niemann Hovland lineup would have been amazing. So that's the beauty to me of the marquee tee time pairings. You can see we had 3 golfers in the optimal lineup. We had Niemann, Carlos Ortiz, and Victor Hovland. And look at that Abraham, Sergio, Carlos Ortiz grouping. 7th, 7th, and 2nd. So for me, really like seeing this. Carlos Ortiz, good value. I mean, you could have went with a Niemann Ortiz lineup, and maybe you select a third one with Hovland or, whomever. But those 2 golfers just by themselves are going to score you a lot of points and help you win any of your contests, or just win money, I should say, in any of your contests. So for me, it's a success with the marquee tee time pairings. It feels really good seeing this. Hopefully we can see more. I think I need to come up with some kind of rule that, because I think we had 7 groups this week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 groups. So that's actually good. Maybe I need a 50% mark. Look at 50% of the amount of groups that there are for marquee tee time pairings and select that amount of golfers. So 6 groups, 50% of that is 3. Maybe I need to tell you guys you need to select 3 golfers from these groups, and just that could be your core of 3. And if there were say 4 groups, only 4, then we'd say select 2. so on and so forth. So I think maybe that would be the way to go. And I'm actually way more confident about the SweetSpot rank than before. I was mentioning this in the strategy video, and I heard someone kind of reached out and was like, hey, this is a little confusing. What do you mean by, you know, the stats that you use? So if I were to go to the PGA Tour website, what I was doing prior to this week would be going to the PGA Tour website, looking at strokes gained off the tee stats, like whatever's posted on there. I guess we can go ahead and take a look. So if I went here to the PGA Tour website, go to stats, and like look at off the tee stats, what I was doing was grabbing this information here, basically copying and pasting all of this, and that's where I would get my averages. But what I'm doing now is I'm manually recording all of the stats round by round for strokes gained stats, also DK points. Like I've been downloading all of the DK points every single week from obviously the file that DraftKings gives you of how many points were scored in that tournament per player. So I've been recording that. I think I actually have that here to show you guys right here, which is another interesting thing to talk about. I think I'm going to get to this a little bit later in the video. But they basically minus this column and this column. These are my own columns. They provide you, this usually has G. They provide you these 4 columns with the rest of, like there's lineups, so you can see everyone's username, stuff like that. But you can download this week in and week out. And it gives you the percent drafted and the fantasy points that they scored that week or for that tournament. So I've been recording all of this, and I've been applying it to my own spreadsheet. Again, I'm trying to build a database, so recording DraftKings points is a big help because this is how you win tournaments. You select 6 golfers who score the most points to win your contest. You know, that's obviously a no-brainer, but that is now what I'm using. I'm using all of the manual mined strokes gained stats that I've been doing week in and week out. Again, round by round, tournament by tournament. There's no more just copying the PGA Tour website and placing it into all of my information. So my data is going to be, I get to look at whatever point in time. That's the other thing with the PGA Tour website. They only give you a starting, like they give you a fixed starting time per year. And then you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can filter it out by whatever the ending tournament you want. So it's always going to start at the Fortinet Championship, which was the first tournament of the season, of the new season. And then you can go week by week all the way to current day. That doesn't really give you a good, like if I wanted to look after every 7, like the past 7 weeks, I can't move that filter for the early, you know, the earliest date. I can't move it up. It's always going to be stuck on Fortinet. Like I wouldn't be able to move it up to the CJ Cup or even to this tournament if I want to look at the next 6 weeks. You know, once we pass those 6 weeks up, I couldn't do that. Now I can. And the stats are just, they're easy. They're easier for me to find. They're easier for me to sort. They're easier for me to do anything I want with them. So that's why I'm excited about the SweetSpot rank going forward, because the stats are going to be more accurate. I can take whatever time frame I want. I'm going back a year, and I think that's what I'll be doing going forward, is just going back 1 full calendar year and taking stats. And if you guys at home have a better idea how to do that, maybe we look at the last 8 weeks, maybe we look at just the last 6 months, whatever. I think a year is good, but I'm open. I'm open to any kind of conversation regarding that. So that's what I mean by I'm using my own data now, which is, it's a breath of fresh air. And obviously it pairs well with the Marquee Tee Time pairings this week. It paired well with the SweetSpot rank, everything you saw there. One last piece. So I'm going to remove this filter. We're going to sort by finishing position once again. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to clear all this out and just look at the top 10 because we're going to get in the bucket system. And the bucket system only looks at the top 10 of any given tournament. So for this tournament, all the years I have data for, which goes back to 2013, that's what the bucket system's analyzing. And my projections that I have involved with it have everything to do with the quality of golfers in this field and how many golfers are in each of those buckets. That's how my projections are created. So here's the top 10. This is these columns here, really the only columns you need to pay attention to. So what I would say here, screenshot, you know, to me, it's screenshot B to K, column B to K. Screenshot that because when we go into the bucket system, I'm going to show you how all these buckets, I'm not really going to show you, I'm going to tell you all of these buckets, 100% correct. So these two columns here, these are my projections. So if I scroll down, everything is marked green. And here's the criteria for my projections to be right. If you remember this column here, we're moving the decimal place over 2 spots. So it's 147, it becomes 1.47, and then we round down. So my minimum now becomes 1. This is basically my minimum here. I know the columns look funky and whatever, but this is my minimum. We're always rounding down, moving the decimal place over and rounding down. So that value underneath this one, so we're looking right here, 75.62, we move it over. That's 0.75, we round down, that's 0. So these are my minimums, and I go over this in my strategy video. My maximums were always rounding up. You don't even have to do any decimal moving or anything like that. This becomes 3. So we're looking at anywhere between 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket, last year 2s. Again, I have that right here. You can look at all the last year 2s. But if you want to know like what constitutes a last year 2, it's their last year finishing position was between 1 to 20. And that's how all of these fields read on the bucket system. So again, we're looking to 1 to 3 last year 2s. If I go into that 2022, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're asking me, why did you highlight this? This is clearly over your projected amount of 3. That was your max. Well, let me go back into it. If I'm looking at all the last year 2s, like if I highlight all these guys, how many were in the optimal lineup? Just these 2, right? So we're looking for optimal lineup golfers. If the amount of golfers in that group exceeds my maximum projection, then I'll color it red. If it doesn't, I'm not going to. It's going to remain green. So although we have 4 golfers that finished inside the top 10 from that bucket, only 2 of them are in the optimal lineup. So therefore, for me, that hits this number right on the button. It's 2. I have 2, although there are 4, ends up being 2. So I hope that doesn't, I understand I've got kind of a very busy brain, and it you know does things the way I envision them or I see them. I think that was a good way to explain that. That's why I color the screen. Now, again, why I told you to screenshot this is because I'm just going to scroll through, and you can call me out if you see any discrepancies, but the bucket system was 100% correct with all my projections. And again, it's telling you guys at home, like, you don't want to select any of these golfers here. Like the projection, this is 0 to 0, basically. Yeah, we round up, but 0.11, that's not good. So you can eliminate 7 golfers from this field from your player pool. And that's kind of how this works. You know, you want 1 to 2 8K golfers. Well, if we go into the 2022 DK page, what do we have? 1 8K golfer, Sergio Garcia. He wasn't even in the optimal lineup, but still 7th place finish is going to net you enough points to take down a contest or just win money. But there's only 1 8K golfer in here. And I'm telling you, you want at least 1 to 2. So yeah, we did have 1 8K golfer. Now you don't have to really follow those rules exactly. The projections go by 10 golfers. You can only roster 6. So although that works out, we do have one golfer that finished inside the top 10 in the 8K range. He's not in the optimal lineup. So again, I explain a lot of this during the strategy videos and stuff like that. So if you're confused here, I would just highly encourage you guys to go watch a strategy video, because I explain it pretty, actually, I didn't do it in the strategy video. I did it in the preview video. My bad. I've changed it. It's in the preview video. Anyways, bucket system, 100% correct. Our minimums and our maximums that we want to select golfers from in these buckets worked out beautifully. Some changes that we need to do with the optimal lineups, but this isn't anything that we, really hardly decide on. The optimal lineup information here is baked into the projections. So I do highlight this just to show you guys like how the optimal lineup worked, but it's not an end all be all. I'm not selecting golfers from this. I used to just look at this and go, yep, I want one last week 4 golfer, last week bucket 4 again, in my lineup. Well, if I would have done that, I wouldn't have had a top 10 finisher. I wouldn't have had a golfer in the optimal lineup, so it wouldn't have worked out. That's why we use the projections now. Plus, I mean, there's 9 golfers in the field that were in that bucket, and only 3 points towards the strength of field, which was not good. So yeah, it all goes into that. So either way, long story short, sorry, I like to ramble sometimes. Bucket system, 100% correct. The last piece I want to talk about involves what I talked about at the end of my strategy video. So if you saw that, awesome. If not, it's fine. I did label it as my ownership rant, and I feel like I got some blowback in other videos. It's funny, this DFS industry of ours, we criticize people without criticizing people. Like, I'm going to get into ownership here because with the bucket system, I don't ever look at ownership. I just look at the golfers from the buckets and build lineups based off of what I need to, collect from those buckets. That helps me get my ownership down from whatever anyone's projecting the ownership as. Here's one thing, like if I were to go ahead and put a filter on this data, I think I can. Let me just add a filter. If I put a filter on this set of data, this is currently in order for the percentage of what the ownership of golfers in. Okay, hold on. This is filtered and it's sorted by the ownership levels or rostership levels of golfers in the $5 drive the green. So of all of us DFS players in that contest, 23% of us, or 23% of the lineups in there, had Viktor Hovland in it. This is the highest number, the highest owned. So if you were looking at 10K golfers, which Viktor Hovland was this week, and we go, what do the projections say that everyone's going to own this golfer at? Oh, Viktor Hovland is the most expensive, followed by Abraham Answer. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's pivot to a lower owned golfer. Well, let's see here. Actually, I have a better way to do this. Let's go here. Let's look at this. I record the ownership levels over here. Let's just take a look at our 10K golfers. There were 7 of them. Well, who was the lowest owned 10K golfer? It was Tyrrell Hatton at 7%, followed by Brooks Koepka at 7%. Easy pivots. Let's pivot from the most owned golfer, Viktor Hovland, to the lowest owned golfer in the 10K range, Tyrrell Hatton. You would have lost so many points. You would have lost out on 50 some points. Actually, it is 60 points. You'd have lost out on 60 points just because you didn't select the right golfer. You went from a perennial golfer to the guy really hasn't played. I don't even know if he's played this tournament before. Has he? No course history. Didn't play here last year. Not a good choice. Same goes with Brooks Koepka, who has a miscut here. Now he has 2 miscuts at this tournament in the 2 times he's played it. Like, I get it. There's leverage to be had, but seriously, just select your best golfer and then determine from there. Like, you can rank these or put them in your own rankings. Like, look at my rankings. Hatton was my 6th ranked golfer. That's fine. But of the 10K golfers, he's 3rd from the bottom. Koepka and Horschel, I'm glad I didn't play many of them. Many of those golfers, they were like way mispriced. 24th, 25th. Like, nah, I don't want to play them. And I was rewarded by it. Thomas was my number 1 ranked golfer. Hovland was my number 2. So for me, it's like, okay, cool. Hovland and Thomas, that's where I'm going to build my lineups from. I'm not playing that ownership game. It might work, but that's like up to chance, right? It's not really, and I know a lot of this DraftKings stuff is up to chance, but like, why? Why do we hamstring ourselves by looking at ownership? It literally, to me, is trying to lose better than someone else. Like, hey, if you go down with Hovland at 23%, I get to eat up all those points you're missing out on with a replacement that might do better. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting when I looked at it. And you know what? This could be the one week where all the chalk hit, and it's very rare that the chalk hits. But I don't really look at it as that. Like, we can evolve to basically getting 60% of this correct. And if we get 60% of it correct, especially when it comes to building lineups of 6 golfers in it, we just need to select 2 guys that are different. Just 2 guys. And that's Andrew Landry and Danny Lee. That's who you need to add to your lineups. Danny Lee and Andrew Landry. They're both in the optimal lineup. They are sub 4%. I mean, Landry was 0.14% in the winning GPP lineup. This is where you need to get to. Stop fading this stuff up here. That's dumb. Anyways, that's my rant. I'm showing you stats, showing you proof. That's all I care about. That's all I want to get at. Like, the ownership game is so weird to me. Super weird to me. I don't use it for leverage. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, rant over. I should do these live just to interact with you guys, to see how you guys think about this. Yeah. Vindicated, validated, whatever you want to call it, with our ownership rant from the strategy video. Perfect week to do it because the chalk hit. All is good in the world. Hopefully you guys did well. I returned some money back. I didn't break even. I made like 140 lineups, but I only put 107 in. So I don't know what those other 33. I should have reviewed it before coming on here. I'm not sure how they did, but I feel like I didn't have enough Victor Hovland, and I did everything pretty equal. I took 2 golfers from the Marquee Tea Time pairings. I put in all the different combinations and built lineups with them with the optimizer I had. And again, it spit out like 120 lineups, but I created 20 handmade ones, like just forgetting that kind of logic and rule. And then I randomized how I was going to, select from, and I just selected 107 from them. So I don't know. I might have a diamond in the rough that I didn't use, which would be sad. I'll post it on Twitter if I do find it. But yeah, SweetSpot process was awesome this week. I kind of wish I would have just selected, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 different pairings and just went 100% with those pairings. Because I bet you I would have got on Neiman Thomas. I would have got on Neiman Hovland and started lineups there. But that's how it goes sometimes. Anyways, I'm not going to bore you anymore. This was fun. I love to rant, especially about nonsense of like ownership. So appreciate you guys watching. Again, let's get to that 275 subscriber mark so we can run another giveaway for all you guys that are subscribed. Push it out to as many people as you possibly can. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the preview for the Houston Open. All right, bye.